Welcome to Hops News, the trusted source in beer culture news. Here's your host, Jay Brew.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
There we go. I think we're good now. Sorry about that. So it said no sound. That's because I was setting up to do something else before when we started, and I had to change some things up a little bit because I think I figured out what it was. But definitely appreciate you joining us. As you know, things are always moving, and things are not. We're not immune to these gremlin issues that show up. So it's been an issue for everybody, but I think we've pulled it together now and should hopefully, fingers crossed, have a stable episode. It's always a challenge. I will tell you, even big networks have a problem pulling stuff like this off, but bringing people from all over the world together to be in front of a camera, on a phone, and bring it all together and put it out there is not easy. But we definitely appreciate you sticking with us through it. Going to be a great episode. I think it's BRLO or BRLO. I'm not too sure. I should have asked her in the pre-show chat that we had with her, but I'm sure she will correct us as soon as we get her on. Katarina with BRLO or BRLO is going to join us. And I will tell you, we had a great conversation with her before the episode started, and I'm looking forward to furthering that conversation because they do some awesome things over there in Germany, over there where Brew Witch is at. And let's go check in. Speaking of Brew Witch, let's go check in with her. Brew Witch, how are things in Germany? I guess it's this afternoon, Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, at least I'm calling in at 4 here, so it's not as early a beer for me as it is you guys. But things are going well. I have a lineup of sour beers to drink today, which I'm quite excited about. Because the last time we talked, I drank mostly high alcohol IPAs, and I think that was a little rough. So today I had a little bit more planning, and I pulled together some lighter sour beers. So I'm excited for the lineup, and I'm really excited to talk to who I've been pronouncing them BRLO, but who knows if that's right either. So I'm very excited to talk to Katarina.
Yeah, BRLO. I don't know, but we're going to find out in a minute. Brew Witch, it's always great to see you on a Sunday morning. It's always my earliest beer of the week, or the month, actually. And like you, I'm kind of sipping on a tart ale myself, so it's a little bit more interesting of a start than I usually am. Mine is usually some sort of coffee, darker beer, but this is actually has kicked me in the mouth after just brushing my teeth from coffee this morning. So it's been an interesting beer. Definitely appreciate you joining us, and we'll get an update from the COVID situation over there as the conversation moves along. Let's go check in with Hoppy down there in Florida. Hoppy, I'm looking forward to you pulling this together for us one of these days. I'm pulling for you big time, but appreciate you. It's always fun when Hoppy joins us because she has some younger kids and they're always running around wild in the background. But as soon as the episode starts, it's like nil. I mean, you won't hear a peep out of any of them. So it's good, and I appreciate you putting in the effort to be with us this morning. How are things in Florida?
Things are good. Some things are opening up. Some things are still closed. I'm about to finish up my coffee. I'm not taking out the big guns this week because last time I was just worthless by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I got a Gose lined up and I got an orange juice IPA. So I figured those will be good morning beers. And it goes along with beer school today is about Goses.
Awesome.
So
yeah, it sounds like.
But yeah, I have my husband in the back, ready to keep those kids quiet. He just, got to keep him in line.
Well, tell Happy Daddy we appreciate it. We usually have him on the Tuesdays and Thursday after shows, so tell him we appreciate his effort in herding the kids and keeping them somewhat calm during the episodes. We're definitely going to have to send him a package one of these days for sure. So we'll come back here to me. Here is the bomber jacket, right? I will tell you, it took a lot to get it going, but without our Hops News family, our Patreon members, we couldn't have done it without you. Literally, you're the ones that made it happen. This will be the giveaway. The donation button is set up for Pink Boot Society now. Go ahead and donate. Drop some change in that bucket. This is a pretty cool design for being one of our first ones. Obviously, everybody knows Bomber Jacket's quality. Great product. Pink Boot Society, yes, we talk about them a lot, and we've featured them on a few shows, but they deserve every bit of recognition they can get and every bit of change that you can drop in that bucket for them, because it's a great organization that I hope we can continue to develop a relationship with them for, and maybe do some cool events with them in the future. I know they're near and dear to Hoppy and Brew Witch's heart, so it's definitely be a great organization. Let's not keep Katarina on hold and in the green room much longer. Katarina, are you still there with us?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, guys.
Hey. Thanks for joining us. And I definitely appreciate you hanging out, and I apologize for the little stutter there in the beginning, but there's a gremlin somewhere in this process that I haven't figured out yet, but definitely thank you. And I'll be honest with you, I'm very thankful that you're still on the line, because I didn't have a chance to go back to you to figure out if you were still there or not. So definitely appreciate you hanging out with us. So before we get too far involved, is this BRLO or BRLO?
It changes with the amount of beers and the length of the evening. How you pronounce it? No, it's so it's spelled BRLO, right? And it's the old Slavic origin of the name of Berlin. We ourselves we say BRLO, like Berlin, But we definitely play with the fact that the name is very confusing at first, and people don't really realize how to pronounce it. So it's definitely the most frequently asked question.
Yeah, very nice. I did read on your website before we got on here that it was Slavic for Berlin. That's where the name came from. So that was a pretty interesting way to come about that name. And not a lot of breweries try to get names that have that historical punch, but that's a pretty interesting concept for you guys, and I'm sure pretty, like you said, talked about fairly often. I don't know how we got a troll in the chat. This is kind of interesting, but if anybody's interested about genital herpes cure, there's a guy that's pushing a doctor in the chat. But let's let's go ahead and give him some feedback, because he's obviously got some issues. Yeah, just don't click anything, because that guy he doesn't have a lot to do on a Sunday morning. So without that, Katarina, one of our most interesting questions that we ask all of our guests is not definitely related to the brewery that they're involved, but learning about you kind of personally, and I kind of have a figure where this answer is going to be, because I know German culture when it comes to beer. Do you recall your first beer?
I don't specifically recall the very first beer, but I was probably very young, maybe like 11 or 12 or something like that. I think that's what most Germans will tell you. And I think it was so I'm from Franconia, northern Bavarian region, so very rich beer culture there, lots of breweries. So I think it must have been at Zirndorf. I don't know if you know that. That's a nice Franconian Keller beer.
Nice. Yeah, I kind of figured that was going to be the answer. I've spent some time in Germany with the military, and definitely have realized that the European culture compared to the American culture is kind of the exact opposite with beer. Obviously, here in the United States, it's kind of one of those things that's taboo until you're a certain age, which just a personal feeling that leads to a lot of the issues that are created around alcohol in the United States. But so I was kind of interested. I figured that was going to be your answer. Obviously, our guests that we have on from the United States, it all ranges from, I didn't drink until I could to, 9 years old at grandpa's house or my uncle's house and broke into the refrigerator one day and that sort of thing. So it's always an interesting conversation. And I that kind of, I don't even know if this is the question is probably the same. The follow-up question we usually ask people is, what was your first craft beer, right? Because people in the United States don't view the big breweries, which started out obviously very much craft in the United States, as craft beer anymore. So I don't know that that's even a much different answer, because that's probably, your first beer was probably a very small batch beer coming out of very small breweries. So, but if that answer is anything different for you, definitely let us know.
There is actually. I mean, as you said, like the term craft beer, to define that in Germany is a whole different discussion and very, very difficult. But kind of my first modern craft beer that I had, and where it's kind of like, okay, this is really cool, this tastes very different, was actually Brooklyn. It was actually Brooklyn Brewery.
Oh, wow.
I think probably, I don't know, like 2006 or something, where I kind of realized, okay, you know what? These guys are actually doing something really different when it comes to beer. Not as traditional, just playing around a lot, and so it is a little bit of a different answer.
Nice, very nice. And those guys do a great job with some dark beer. I really, really enjoy their darker brands that they put out, and that's a great answer, because those guys, those are here in the United States, we've kind of got the purist, and there's probably a lot of those guys that wouldn't even consider them very much craft anymore. So that's an interesting answer, but those Brooklyn breweries definitely a great one.
Do you get them in Germany, Brooklyn Brewery?
We do get them in Germany. I think they're distributed through Carlsberg. You don't get it very freshly, unfortunately. So definitely prefer the American experience.
So, Katrina, tell us a little bit how you got started in the beer industry then. You go from drinking, obviously, in Germany, it's not taboo like it is here, so beer is pretty much always a part of the culture. So you go from that to having a Brooklyn beer as what you would consider your first craft beer. Where in this process did you say, we can do this, I can do this, I can be a part of this culture that is now craft beer, or the beer culture as we call it? Because I think I tell everybody, whether you love them or hate them, big beer companies are why we're here where we're at today. That is what's developed the beer culture that we know it today. So where in this process did you say, I've got to be a part of this beer culture, I know I can do it, and this is the day that it started?
It really started off as a crazy idea. So I have a business background, was working for a big German media company for many years, and was kind of in between jobs and wanted to figure out what my next step is. And I just realized, okay, I don't want to work for a big company anymore, but I also didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I was traveling in Australia actually for a few weeks, and I was basically drinking craft beer every day and had so much fun, like discovering the craft beer scene there in Sydney and in Melbourne. And I had this moment, where I was in a bottle shop and I had to choose a six-pack, and I couldn't decide because everything was so great, the names, the styles, everything was so diverse. And there was a moment where I thought, this is super interesting. Like, even though we come from such a beer culture in Germany and we're so proud of our beer culture, it's actually really boring. If you look at the bigger industrial breweries, the brands are all kind of the same. Everything has kind of revolved around the same styles, like Pilsner or Hefeweizen. It's basically the two styles that you see everywhere. And there's not a lot of diversity. And so that was a moment when I was like, I would love to do that at some point in my life, maybe like bring some craft beer to Germany, or the concept of more diverse craft. So that moment was in January 2014. I told a friend from back in college about this, and he actually wanted to start homebrewing with his dad as a father-son hobby. And we're both like, you know what, maybe we should see how far we get. And then we met a young brewmaster, Micha, who became our third co-founder. And so this was all in mid-2014, and we just decided to give it a go. It was really weird, and we just thought, the concept of craft is only just starting in Germany, of modern craft, and we thought we can contribute something to this. So that really was the start, and we just went from there. Yeah, so almost 6 years later.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
I have some, through fly fishing. Fly fishing community is a pretty international community. We have a small group in the United States that are interested in fly fishing and are a big part of the community, but a lot of the European nations have been fly fishing much longer than we have, and are much more ingrained in kind of their tradition. So through fly fishing, I have a few friends that are international as well, and I'd post a beer that, pictures of beer out on the stream or wherever we're at fly fishing, and for me it was kind of just ordinary beer, right? It's not like spectacular beer, craft beer that's being produced in the States. And they would always comment like that was a great beer. And my thought process was like, I would give anything to be able to go to the pub and drink what you're drinking. But then it took me a while to realize what they have in their pub has been there for years. They're not, it's kind of like you said, the beer is very much traditional. It's not a lot of, in the past, at least my time that I spent in Germany, which was in the late 90s, you couldn't find an IPA. I mean, they weren't there like they are now, I'm sure, but you start to think about that aspect of beer and where we're at today. It's kind of interesting for people to hear people that come from such a rich beer culture society like that, to say, I just wanted to branch out. I wanted to create something that wasn't being created outside of what our norm is. And even us, I mean, a Hoppy will probably admit to it. If she could go there and drink a traditional Hefeweizen tomorrow, she would do it in a second. So
hell yeah. I'm supposed to be there next September for Oktoberfest. I don't know what's going to happen now with all this COVID stuff, but yes, absolutely.
Oh, wow.
But I get what you're saying. I mean, the history, though, like, I can't wait to go to Germany and just go to these old breweries, because you guys have something, we don't, is just history of beer. I mean, our oldest city is St. Augustine, and their breweries aren't as old as their city. But I get, though, that you want both. You want the new beer and the fun beer, but it's awesome too that you guys have I would say the best beer. I mean, I'll drink styles of German beer that I don't drink styles of American. I'm not a big Hefeweizen fan when it's American, but I will definitely drink a German Hefeweizen. It's just it's different.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I think that the baseline quality of German beer is really amazing. That's for sure. But also, if you look at, for example, I mean, some of the oldest sour styles also come from Germany, like Berliner Weisse and Gose. But then you hardly find them anywhere in Germany. They're not at all in the mainstream. Well, Berliner Weisse in Berlin kind of is, but in a more a little bit more perverted version, pre-mixed with artificial syrup, and it's become this completely tourist drink. And a lot of people don't even know how a Berliner Weisse was actually supposed to taste like. So it's interesting that I think a lot of these styles are now so popular kind of in the US, in the UK, and get reinterpreted so much. And then obviously a lot of the small craft brewers here do that as well. But to the general public, it's still very much a niche market. So it's interesting. It's kind of, we need to bring that back up again.
And we're talking to Katarina with BRLO out in Germany, obviously a woman involved in the beer industry. And we have Pink Boot Society featured as the nonprofit. Go ahead and hit them up. Drop in whatever it is that you can provide, because they would definitely appreciate your donation this morning. And that's their mission, is to further women involved in beer, which is obviously a great need. There's not a lot of it there. There's a lot of people that look like me with big beards in the United States that are involved in beer, but not a lot of people that look like Katarina Hoppy or Brew Witch involved in beer still in the United States. There's a few local breweries, smaller breweries that kind of do it, but even in some of the bigger guys, they're definitely not as represented as they should be. Hoppy just dropped the link to Pink Boot Society, so if you're interested in learning more about them, definitely don't hesitate. Corey, one of our Hops News family members, says Brooklyn is one of those breweries that doesn't get talked about a lot, but they have had a huge impact on the growth of the craft movement. Definitely have. That is one of those breweries that if I look back to the start of craft beer in the United States, that's probably one of those breweries that I would consider. Katarina, so what is in BRLO, what is kind of the style that you guys are known for, and maybe what is some of the things that you guys that the brewery is known for locally there in Germany?
No, we do a good mix actually of German traditional styles that we reinterpret, and then obviously also getting pretty much inspired by modern craft. So we do a mix of. I think the first beer we ever released was a Helles. So we started with a Helles and a pale ale, because back then, for me, a pale ale really represented how different beer can be without. But at the same time being super accessible, different to the German palate. So that's still the state that we're in, a lot of people here in Germany still don't know what a pale ale or an IPA is. It's slowly changing, but that's definitely also kind of the journey we had to go through. So in that respect, modern craft, we're still very, very much behind from what other countries have been doing. But then I would say we're also very well known for our Berliner Weisse that we interpret in different ways. But I think it's a good mix. And we just we finally actually brought out our first pill, which is called Happy Pill. And for a long time, like the German craft beer scene was like, okay, Pilsner is kind of the symbol of industrial beer, and we're doing everything but Pilsner. But I think like right now, a lot of people are actually saying, you know what? I mean, obviously, like our German or more German traditional styles are also great, and we are reinterpreting them. So that's actually the beer I'm most excited about this year. A really nice crushable Pilsner.
Yeah, that is. I will tell you, my go-to style this summer is lagers, so I can definitely relate to those light, refreshing beers. The ales are, I mean, I hate to say it, but the ales are even a little bit heavy this summer for me for some reason. So I don't know if it's because I'm trying to run a little bit more or what it is, but the lager style is definitely where I'm at as well. And speaking of beer, let's go check in with Brew Witch there. She is drinking a BRLO. Brew Witch, tell us about what you're drinking from them today.
You know, I'm actually drinking the Berliner Weiss today. You know, I don't think I really realized how into sours I am into like recent years, because I think in my head I made them out to be something that they're just entirely not. And Berliner Weisses have quickly become a favorite of mine through this one. And BRLO also has Mama Weiss, which is Berliner Weiss with passion fruit and mango, I think. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's those two. And yeah, I've been drinking those loads, and I've been drinking Schneel's Berliner Weiss a lot since I came back to Germany. So like right now, I love Berliner Weisses. And I actually have a question, because I know that BRLO has recently started canning, and I was wondering how people are reacting to that, because like it's such a bottle culture still here. So I'm very curious to see how people are responding to your new can lines.
Yeah, so it is a total bottle culture here, and I think even what's difficult in Germany is that there has been even a war against cans some 15 years ago by the Green Party here, and so there was this huge campaign that cans are bad for the environment. So cans still have this very, very, very bad image. And even though like the very small craft beer scene has been preaching that it's, you know, the best packaging for beer, it's still a little bit difficult. So I was quite worried, to be honest, when we posted about it first. I was like, oh God, we're going to get some hate posts, that we're going to destroy the environment. But so far the reaction has actually been quite good. So for me, cans is still a little bit of a niche topic, at least in Germany. So I don't think we're going to go into, into supermarkets with our cans or something, but I'm super excited about it. And we have an amazing design that's very different from our bottles. So, so the first two cans are out. One is, we're going to have 4 in total. One is a hazy IPA. Then we have bottled our alcohol-free pale ale, which is called Naked. And then we're going to bring our pills into cans and a Berliner Weisse with the 6 different red berries. It's going to be called the Berlin Jam. So you definitely have to try that next when you're into sours.
Awesome. If you're putting a hazy IPA in a can, you're probably blowing away your average consumer coming out there. If the pale ale was a step from what they're used to, and you're putting a hazy IPA in the can, when they crack that thing open, you're going to punch them right in the mouth.
In a good way, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But I do realize that hazy IPAs for first-time drinkers or people that say usually they don't like to drink beer can be super interesting.
Yep.
So I don't know. So we've gotten some good feedback.
Yep. And I will tell you, I've spent some time in the beer industry myself. Our brewery we've been around, I think they're probably celebrating the 6th year now of craft beer here in the United States, which obviously is pretty early in the small craft beer scene here in the United States. but we were one of very few in the beginning. I don't think we've ever put a core beer in a bottle. It has always been canned, and when we started doing that, then we kind of felt the same pressures here in the United States. It's like, well, you can't put craft beer in a damn can. It's like, well, watch us. But now the movement is, if you're not putting it in a can, nobody's going to drink it, because if they can't put it in a damn backpack, a kayak, a boat of some sort, their motorcycle, or wherever it is that they're taking beer nowadays, they don't want it. Bottles break. People don't go backpacking with bottles of beer generally in their backpack. Yes, they do it, but it's a lot easier if they can pick up a 6-pack, a 12-pack of your core that's in a can and throw it wherever they're taking it. Tailgates here in the States, some of them you can't have bottles anywhere.
And beaches too.
Yeah, beaches. So canning beer is definitely, if you're not canning beer in the United States at this point, you're missing a huge segment of the market. So it's interesting to hear the stark contrast between the two societies. And I will tell you that there's a lot of breweries that's all they're going to do is cans, because canners have made it so easy for people even out of their garage to can beer now that just seems to be the go-to. It's kind of interesting that you're getting that feedback. My accounting schooling, I have a couple of accounting degrees from a local university here that is big into sustainability. We're probably one of the leading sustainability higher education institutions in the School of Business. So it's kind of interesting that you hear that, because I would tend to say that if you talk to an educator, what they will tell you is the impact from cans is a lot less than the impact from bottles. And obviously there's going to be arguments every way, but one of the biggest things is shipping. The weight of a bottle to ship a bottle is tremendous, and that's where the majority of the impact comes into, because manufacturing processes isn't like aluminum used to be. So I would dare say that any of your naysayers that are kind of pointing fingers at you, bottles versus cans, there's definitely a valid argument on your side of what you guys are doing actually has a lot less impact on the environment than what they realize. Cans are recycled, can be turned into anything from another can to a toaster to whatever else is out there. A bottle is a bottle. There's nothing that can be done with it, and the shipping back and forth is not as earth friendly as what a lot of people think. So I definitely appreciate that cause, and I will tell you, if you kind of stick to those guns, I think that what you'll find is people will kind of come around, especially the fact that you can take it anywhere so easily compared to a bottle.
Yeah.
So the cans and the hazy IPA that's going into the can, what that had to be, I want to know more about that process for you guys, because coming from where you're at today, and the fact that you introduced a pale ale was kind of stepping out on the edge, and now you're putting a hazy IPA into a can, are you guys viewed at as kind of that brewery that's going to bring some of the, what you guys would consider international flair or American flair to German brewery or beer?
I mean, I think there's a number of great craft breweries that do that in Germany. But I think what we managed to do in Berlin, we have a very unique brewery and restaurant and beer garden location right in the center of Berlin. So we bought we built it out of 38 used shipping containers. So the entire brewery and brew house concept is pretty unique, and we have a beer garden for like 700 people. That's beautiful, very urban, very cool. And I think what we've managed to do is really be super accessible and bring a whole lot of new people to try out new beer styles and really discover the idea of modern craft. And I think so. I think that's good news. So, and I think that's what we need. But like we need to bring liquid on lips. How do you always say it?
Oh, nice.
Kind of, I don't know, just get people to try it, because otherwise, that's the only way how you're going to change the perception. What you must not forget in Germany, one of our biggest issues is that beer is very, very, very cheap. So the price level of beer is ridiculous. I mean, you're getting a crate of 24 bottles in a supermarket for 10 euros, or even below.
Wow.
And so a lot of people are not used to paying more for beer because obviously it costs a lot more to make a diverse portfolio of craft beers and hoppy beers. And so I think we really need to work on that perception that beer is always supposed to be cheap. So that's kind of what we're all fighting for, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm going to thank Jeff in the chat there. He's a Hops News family member for dropping a donation in there. Hoppy dropped a link to BRLO's website there. Check that out. Great information on that. Steve, my partner just joined the Pink Boots Society last night, so I'm gladly donating to an awesome cause. Appreciate that donation, Steve, and definitely greatly appreciate that. If you want to be involved in the random drawing for the Hops News bomber jacket, you got to donate to the Pink Boots Society today. Drop your change in there. Corey, the can art for BRLO, the can art for BRLO is great. That hazy can is fun. So that is as we all know, marketing in beer right now is about what that label looks like, and that is a big part of getting people interested over here, and Hoppy just dropped a donation there. Hoppy, appreciate that. So tell us, Katarina, we talked a little bit before the show. Your brewery is not, people, you think about going to a brewery, you think about some block walls, a building that's been, we've got a lot of mills, textile mills in the United States that are being turned into breweries. You've got a lot of abandoned buildings that are being turned into breweries. But that's not the case for BRLO. Tell us a little bit about the actual building location that BRLO started out in.
Yeah, so it's right in the center of Berlin in Kreuzberg, right next to a park. And we first learned about that. There was this empty piece of land, basically, and somebody told us about it, and we really fell in love with the location. But there was a big catch to it, and the big catch is that at some point there's going to be massive construction. There's going to be 5 big office buildings that will be constructed. And so the owners told us, well, you know what, I think it's a great idea if you want to build a brewery there, but you can only stay for a few years. And we were like, okay, well, let's build everything in movable shipping containers. It sounds very easy. It was, to be honest, it was a nightmare to build, but it's super cool. I mean, the building is really unique. It's a unique atmosphere. And so we can, if we have to move at some point, we can theoretically just move the entire building and the brewery somewhere else. And I think that, paired with a location, with a nice beer garden, with an interesting food concept, where we actually focus on vegetables. So we don't do burgers or chicken wings or something like that, but we really said, you know what, like let's try and bring high-end food and show how, because if you look at a beer cuisine, I would say a brew house culture in Germany, it's always very unhealthy food, like schnitzel or like pork knuckle and stuff like that. And so we kind of said, we might as well just come up with something completely different. We're trying to make different beer. We're in this weird building made out of shipping containers. We also can do something completely different when it comes to food. And I think that concept really hits the spot.
I love that. Yeah, in America too, it's burgers and hot dogs and chicken wings, and yeah, you can't get anything healthy at a brewery usually. Not always, but usually.
Yeah.
And I saw pictures of your brewery. That beer garden is gorgeous. If anybody, click on that link and just take a look, they have it looks like a hop yard. Like you got hops growing in your beer garden. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it actually, it's supposed to mimic the hop fields. And we have actual hops growing in the beer garden, which, it's really fun to see throughout the summer. And it's a unique atmosphere. And also right now during the COVID situation, it's great because people, like to be outside and they feel safe there. So that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, well, hopefully I get to visit you next September. Fingers crossed.
Me too.
Yeah. So I asked Katarina before we got started on the episode, and we were so rudely interrupted by technical issues. I asked her if they had a video, because I read about the brewery in the beginning this morning before we got fired up, and heard that it was manufactured, the actual facilities is out of shipping containers. And I asked her if they had video, like a video tour, because they do tours of their facility as well. And they don't, but I definitely want to facilitate that, because I think that would be a great story to tell. And I think that would be great for something else to do with a platform that we're trying to do. So hopefully in the coming weeks, we're able to facilitate a video tour of their facility through Brew Witch. My fingers are crossed that we can find that out there. So if you're listening and you know a videographer in the Berlin area, definitely hit us up, because we're looking to partner with somebody that wants to be a part of that project, and definitely willing to help us. If we can get the numbers right, which usually shouldn't be too bad, you find the guy or girl that's interested in the beer industry and does pretty good videos, they would probably love the opportunity to do it. But looking forward to that, because that is a great story. That the shipping container building aspect is kind of new here as well. But there's a lot of people that are kind of doing it. We've got a company, as a matter of fact, here in town, that's one of the first, being a designer and developer of shipping container structures, homes, office buildings, that sort of thing. So it's pretty interesting to hear that you guys are a brewery that's been in operation in shipping containers. Is that shipping container structures in Germany? Has that been a thing for a while, or are you guys kind of one of the first to really do something of that scale?
There have been some interesting structures for sure in a few places, and one was in Berlin, where we actually got the inspiration from, but it's definitely, I think, one of the, like, our brewery is one of the biggest and most compact structures that we know of in Europe. Hosting a full restaurant, a full brewery in an office space. But I think shipping container architecture is really awesome. So I hope that there's going to be a lot more projects everywhere in the world.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in the same aspect, right? You said it wasn't easy, so I'm sure there was a lot of trying times behind that, and I can only imagine some of the nights that you had to go through and the thoughts that were being done. But that's a great project.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. It wasn't easy. We made all the mistakes that there were to make, so you can learn from us. That's the good news.
Yeah, interesting. So you said that you talked about started the Berliner Weiss and then the sour aspect of your beers. Gose was mentioned, and just a reminder, Hoppy's got beer school. She does a fantastic segment during our Hoppy hours that she joins us on, and she's doing beer school this week today about Gose. So it'd be interesting to hear what she has to say about that. I'm just finishing a tart ale by Bell's. It's out of Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Fruit Fight.
Yeah, anyone just listening, it's got flamingos on it. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty great beer. Obviously not the smartest move after brushing your teeth in the morning, but it's been a great beer. I actually had one last night. We went out and did a little bit of stargazing, as we call it here. There's a comet out there flying around, if anybody doesn't know, that's very interesting. Close enough, bright enough that you can see it with a naked eye, that was just discovered at the end of March. Now let that sink in a minute. There is a comet flying around the Earth that was just discovered at the end of March, and you can see it with a naked eye. It's a pretty impressive sight. If you haven't seen it, definitely make time to see it. For us here in the United States, we should have the best viewing the closer we get to July 23rd. If it lasts that long, right? There's so much that they don't know about this comet, that it's flying around out there. One thing they do know, that it's burning up 13 million Olympic-sized pools of water a day is what's flying off that thing. So literally, it could burn out at any second, because they just discovered it and don't know a lot about it. So if you're into that sort of thing, I say go find a spot that doesn't have a lot of light pollution tonight. For us, you look right underneath the Big Dipper, and you're going to see it in the night sky. So go check it out. A great site that if it does come back again, it won't come back for another 6,000 years, and I don't think that I'm going to be around that long. So it was a great site. Had some great beer out there just off the Parkway for us, but it was definitely interesting. That's a great beer that's done by Bell's. I do have a coffee cake stout that I'm going to open here in just a second.
Ooh.
So that'll get things
delicious.
started. So, Katarina, one thing that we like to ask everybody that's in a brewery or involved in beer production, if the three of us were to walk into your tap room today and belly up to your bar and you're standing behind it, what is it that you're going to pour for us?
I think I'm gonna pour one of our fruited Berliner Weisses for you. So I think my new favorite is Berlin Jam. So it's done with 5 different red fruits, like berries that you also find, in and around Berlin. That's definitely what I'm going to pour for you.
Oh, that sounds spectacular.
Sounds
Yeah, and you're probably going to have to pour it a couple of times.
Yes, and it's perfect for 11 a.m. in the morning, which is, I think, your time now.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's
almost.
awesome.
Well, I'll be ordering food too when I come, because it sounds like you got an awesome kitchen.
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, looking forward to having you.
for sure.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, big.
For sure. And one of the new things that are hitting here in these states that I haven't had yet the opportunity to try is fruited beer. Is that a thing in Germany now? Not just adjuncts, but like real fruit, high levels of fruit juice added to the beer. Is that something that's hit Germany yet?
No, not that much, I think. I don't know, Brew Witch, maybe you disagree with me. So a lot of people have been using like actual fruit, the fruit purees, but juice plus beer, not that much.
Yeah, that's kind of a new thing here. I picked up my first, the group that we have that are kind of regulars for us. I picked up my first one yesterday, so I'm getting ready to try that here this morning, and I was just kind of curious. We talk about all the new waves, and you guys kind of introducing pale ale was kind of a step out, so I was curious if that was a thing, because this will be the first for me. I'll be honest with you, I don't have a lot of high expectations for it, because I think it might be a little bit over the top for beer, but I'm definitely interested for trying it out. Katarina, we've taken up way more of your time than we've ever taken up for anybody. But you guys have a great story and a great brewery, and I do hope that we can facilitate a video tour of your facilities, because I want to see it, if nothing more. So I definitely hope to remain in contact with you through Brew Witch and see if we can't figure that out for you. But we appreciate
For sure, let's do it.
Yeah, we appreciate your time this morning. Is there any parting shots, things that we didn't ask that you would like to put out there about yourself or the brewery?
No, you know what? I'm just. I hope if some of the listeners, would like to check it out on the next Berlin visit. Well, I'd love to have some of you over to try our beers. Thank you so much.
Awesome, and we definitely appreciate it. If I ever get back that way again, you will definitely be on that list. So appreciate your time. How can people find you or your brewery on social media?
So just look for BRLO, BRLO, on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Not that active on Twitter. Instagram is the best, actually. BRLO Beer.
Yeah, we're all on there as well. Katarina, appreciate your time. We won't keep you anymore. You have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Bye. Thanks.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. All right, I just posted the Instagram link on Facebook. Should be showing up in a second. All right, yeah, I really hope to get out there, man. I got a list of things, and we were supposed to go with a huge group to Oktoberfest, too, so we'd be coming in there with like 20 people, but now nobody knows what's going on. My friends and I are really good at traveling together, and we're all, for the most part, we all like good beer, or we appreciate good beer. So, like, we did a cruise to the Bahamas last year, and we all went to the brewery there. We did a cruise to Mexico in January, and we all went to the brewery there. So I was really looking forward to going to all these breweries in Germany and Oktoberfest. And now, who the hell knows? But
you had mentioned that you were thinking of going to Bamberg as well to try the smoked beers.
I want to do everything.
Well, I don't blame you.
Yes.
Like, you could fill like months doing all the beer things here. So I'm sad. Like, I'm genuinely sad for you.
Well, one day. It just may not be next year. Like, it was supposed to be one of my friends is turning 40, so we were going to celebrate her 40th. We were going to do the half marathon at Disneyland and get a car and then drive to Germany and meet everybody else and do Oktoberfest and do these old breweries. Like, we were planning on taking probably like 10 days. And now, I still keeping track of all this. But what I found interesting, and I actually wanted to ask you, when I've been researching some of these beers, like the smoked beer in Bamberg and now Gose, that you have taverns for specific styles of beer, it seems like. Is that still a thing, or is that more an old school thing?
I mean, I think that's partially true, because there's still specific places you can go that most of what they're pouring will be like their original beer. So like my next beer, I picked up a Gose for your chat.
Nice.
And
so that was one that's like the Gose.
Yeah, so this one's like an old school one, and like you can go to their tap room, and they have other beers, like they have pilsners, and I think they had like a Helles and maybe something else. I'm not positive, but like it's mostly just like a Gose hang. And there's other gardens in Leipzig, the city where where this is brewed. There's other bars and gardens that are essentially just like Gose gardens. The last time I was there, we went to one, I can't remember the name of it. Anyways, we went to this one garden, and they had like every different type of Gose you could try. Like there was like a long list, and it was all Goses. So like I think a lot of places do kind of stick to their thing, if you will.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, like we have breweries here that'll be like, oh, that brewery's, hazies are amazing, or this place's stouts are, but they still brew multiple styles. So I thought I mean, every now and then you will see a brewery that specializes in one, but it's very rare. So I just found that interesting that I would see a smoky beer tavern and a Gose tavern, and I can try to say them in German. I know the Gose one is Gosenschacken. I don't know. Something like that.
Like, especially when you go to Bamberg, like, if you were to go to, like, Schlenkerla, or one of, like, the big ones, like, they would essentially be pouring, like, the same 3 beers, and that would be, like, the extent of it. But, like, what else are you going for, I guess, at that point? Like,
right.
You're going to have...
Here they're also going for, we want you to come in with that person who doesn't drink beer. So we're also, a lot of them sell wine as well and ciders and all sorts of things. But I think that maybe that's a States kind of culture where we just want to get as much business in the door as we can. But I think it's also smart, because it's like my stepmom doesn't want to go to a brewery with my dad and I if they don't have wine or cider. And I can't blame her.
Yeah, my mom's the same way. Like, she doesn't drink beer. So, like, if I'm going to a brewery, they better have something else there for her,
Right. Very interesting.
So, first impressions, the can is pretty sweet.
That's pretty sweet. Can.
It's by, I can't really see it that great, but I believe it's Newgrass Brewing here, a local brewery. I'm assuming Sticks and Jones Tattoo.
Sticks and Jones.
Tattoo was the can art designer. I believe it's Self-Unaware is the beer. It's a tropical Berliner Weiss brewed with mangoes, pineapple, and passion fruit. I didn't realize even that's what that beer was till I opened it and poured it and drank it and said, I've got to figure out what the style is supposed to be. But it is fruity. It is definitely fruity. I don't feel guilty because it feels like I'm drinking juice. Definitely has the Berliner Weiss sourness to it. And there's no way that you're seeing through that beer. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, that is thick.
It's a thick beer.
Is really thick.
It came highly recommended by the guy at the beer store that I purchased it from. First impressions. I'm not sure that I'm a fan yet. The first sip made me thankful that I have a chocolate lava cake stout sitting in the waiting room after this one is over, getting a little bit warmed up. But I think it's probably I think they probably did a great job for what they were shooting for. I'm just not sure I'm a fan of the fruited beer yet. I think I probably need a few more before I make that determination. It is very thick. It's going to take a minute for me to get used to the idea that this is a beer and not just a fruit smoothie that somebody threw in a can. The interesting thing was, obviously, when I purchased it, the gentleman was thoughtful enough to say, hey, man, do not send that beer in a package. Do not do anything except put that thing in the refrigerator. So I definitely appreciate that tip, because it is not pasteurized fruit juice that's in here. It's all fresh. So if you send a fruited beer that's not been pasteurized to somebody, they're going to be highly disappointed when they open it if it doesn't explode. So take some getting used to. What's the thought from people watching? Fruited beer, fan, not a fan? Have you had it? Recommendations if you like it. Hoppy, let's go check in with Hoppy. Hoppy, have you had fruited beer? Have you experienced it yet?
I've had some of the fruited beers. I've even had a fruited IPA, and I gotta say that they tend to be too sweet for me. And when you guys were talking about it, when we still had BRLO on, that was my first thought: is these beers explode? Like, you can't ship them. You got to put them in the fridge right away. Like, I've heard numerous stories of, out of nowhere, this can because I guess it keeps fermenting, so it's trying to let off. Much like the growler of the hazy IPA I tried to brew in my closet, it just explodes. But with the fruited beers, though, they tend to be like bright pink, and then that's just, it's got to look like Dexter was there or something. So, I'm always open to try every single beer, because even if there's styles you don't like, there's always one that you might. But I'm not a fruit beer fan.
Yeah, I think fruit beers are quite like hit or miss for me. Like I think if I go into it with the mindset that it's not like the other beers I'm drinking, I'm much more open to it. Like, I don't know if you guys have been following what Omnipolo is up to. The brewery Omnipolo, they're out of Sweden. If you look them up on Instagram, it's genuinely, I'm not sure what the word is other than like psychedelic, one might say. Like, the colors that they pull out with these like fruited beers are crazy, because you can get a beer that's like bright pink, like purple, like, and sometimes, like, I think I like beers like that when I can have like a 0.3 pour and like try it out and see how it goes. But sometimes it's genuinely just so far away from what I'm used to,
Yeah. I think I've heard of them. I'm pulling them up now.
Oh yeah, they're like, if all else fails, they're just fun to follow. So just see what they're up to.
Fun.
Yeah, that might be a great guest. See if we can line that up for our next international episode.
Well, there was another one I was thinking we need to let Matt know, try to get Brooklyn on.
Yeah, for sure. We can definitely, if MASH emails them, they'll schedule. MASH has been phenomenal at lining up guests, and we'll talk about who we've got coming up here shortly. But I will tell you, he has some big guests coming up. Yeah, obviously people are going, especially nowadays with everything that breweries are going to have to climb out of because of this COVID issue. It's going to be interesting to see all of how they try to differentiate themselves for the market, what that innovation looks like in beer now. Fruited beer is a hell of a step, but to be able to create colors and contrast like that through beer, I definitely, man, I hope I will send MASH their way to see if he can't hook them up for our next international episode, because I'd be interested to see what their motive was behind it, right? If they're trying to do something new to penetrate the market, if they've traditionally done traditional style beers and they're just trying something different, or if this has kind of been who they were from day one, and if maybe they just happenstance across something that made them a little bit more innovative than others. But definitely interested to hear what their story would be, and I'm going to have to check them out. I don't believe I've seen them on Instagram, so Hoppy, if you have Hops News pulled up there, if you could follow them, I'd definitely appreciate keeping up with them, because I will likely not remember the conversation by the end of the day when I get done thinking about what I need to follow up on. So definitely a great concept. Hope they succeed with it, because obviously these guys that are doing these fruited type beers, are kind of doing something different for reasons. But haven't decided if I'm a fan. I'm going to have to find an IPA. Is the IPAs and the sours, I'm guessing that's probably where they stick at with the fruited beers. Have you experienced any other styles in the fruited beer, Hoppy?
I feel like a lot of places are doing with all sorts of ones. I mean, obviously you see fruit added to stouts and whatnot, but I've seen them in IPAs, I've seen them in sours, but I guess there's some that are specifically fruit beer, which I just usually don't even order those kind, but you do see them in different styles. And that's the thing. It's like my husband brought home a fruited IPA from a brewery, and like he loved it because he likes things that are sweeter, and I did not. I just tolerated it, but
Yeah. Lori
wasn't
said,
bad.
Lori in the chat said, yes, I like small pour on strong flavored beer. Yeah, I would.
Don't. Yeah, that's my mom. She doesn't like anything sweet, so she wouldn't like anything that she wouldn't really like a fruited beer.
Yeah, I would. If I could get this in a small pour, I would have. But unfortunately, it's a 16-ounce can that is going to be a. It's a sour, and I really started out enjoying sours. Back with Jolly Pumpkin, Hoppy's probably had some Jolly Pumpkin product maybe out of Michigan. Those guys were probably at their time and doing what they were doing were literally on the forefront of really, really sour beer and still do a lot of great beers. But this is, and a lot of their stuff, as much as I enjoyed the sour phase of my time, I was still, kind of, let's get a small pour of it and drink a lot of them instead of getting a full pour, even a 12-ounce pour of a sour. That tends to get a little daunting by the end of the glass for me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if it's a style I love, I want a full pour. I don't like doing tasters of beers that I love. But for just trying certain things that's not your, go-to. Absolutely. That's what flights I think are for.
Yeah, like I had the beer that comes to mind for me for a fruited sour was it's from a brewery, Sudden Death here, and I didn't really realize it was a fruited sour before I tried it. I just thought it was just a regular sour. Mm-hmm. But it was a fruited sour that was also brewed with marshmallows, and like it was very interesting. But like I don't think I could do more than like a small pour of it. Like the one bottle I had of it was like, I think I was good with that.
Right. The marshmallows are interesting. I gotta say, I've had IPAs and stouts with marshmallows, and they're actually pretty good.
Yeah, I'll take it.
But yeah, it's definitely interesting, some of the things but I heard it's a mess because marshmallows are very sticky. I think Brad was talking about that one day. That Brad's one of our Hops News family, and he's also working on opening a brewery in Tennessee. So he actually brews everything, and he was saying I think it's messy because it gets so sticky, and then you got to clean it out. But Brad, if you're listening, you can chime in and correct me.
Yeah, for sure. So, Brew Witch, we're still with you there in Germany. Is the fruited beers? Are they making an impact over there? Are they kind of penetrating the market? Kind of what's your feel for them over there? Is market? The size of the beer market? Are they big? They new? They just getting started? What's the pulse?
It's a good question, but I feel like Katarina is right that it's not really a big aspect here because I run a beer shop and I can't really think of many beers that I can mention right now. So I feel like it's not a huge thing. I feel like in other countries it's probably a bigger deal than it is here. That's my guess anyway. Because I really can't think of that many examples right now for German breweries making them. But that just might be because I'm not seeking them out myself. So I'm wondering if it's just because I'm a bit naive on that topic.
But I mean, if they're still getting into pale ales and IPAs, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where maybe in a few years, maybe, but the only German brewery I can think of is the one I just mentioned, the fruited sour with the marshmallows. That's the only one that's coming to mind right now. And that Omnipolo crowd, they're out of Sweden. They're not German. They happen to have a bar in Hamburg, but they're not actually from here. So I feel like it might be a bigger thing internationally is my guess. But someone please correct me if I'm wrong on that.
With BrewDog opening there, is that been popular? Have you seen more people be like, oh, okay, maybe I won't just get this German style beer?
I mean, it's one of those things where it really depends on where you are. One of the other questions I forgot to ask Katarina is because I saw that she's from Franconia when we were talking to her, and that's where all the Rauch beers are from. So I was going to ask her about the major differences between the markets because it's such a different world in the south of Germany than it is in the north. Because if you're in Berlin or Hamburg, the craft beer world is so much wider. There's just so much more recognition when you're in one of those cities. So BrewDog. Just on the topic of BrewDog, I'm very interested to see what they're up to because I haven't really heard much about them. I follow them and I'm seeing their updates, but I'm still curious as to what their story is going to be because do you know how long they've been that they've had the Stone location, the old Stone location.
I don't even think that Greg Koch opened it up that long ago, so I can't imagine they've been there very long. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, depending on what city you're in, it's a big different topic. But like, it really depends, I think.
Yeah, I literally think that Brewdog opened that location like within the past few months, maybe even during the pandemic issues. So it hasn't. Right. I don't think it's been that long because, as Hoppy said, Stone hasn't exited too long ago. Is when they finally shut down operations. So I don't think it's actually been that too long. Speaking of the pandemic, Brew, how are things going in Germany with it? How's everyday life? How's the beer business handling it? How are people in Germany handling it?
You know, they have been opening up. So like here in Dresden, like tourism is back on, which was...
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Like it's quite jarring, to be honest, because I worked entirely through the pandemic period. So I had days when we had like 2 customers in, like no one was trying to buy beer. So like, it's very interesting because people are on the move, people are traveling, we're getting people in from outside Germany now. Like it's interesting, like places are opening up. If people have the ability to have people in their bars, like people are there. Like I know BRLO is probably extraordinarily lucky with their giant garden there. And like you can have people inside in most of the German, I think all the German cities. I think you can have people inside. You just have to do it well. So like it's interesting because like I'm here and things are opening up and things are so different compared to what I'm seeing back in the States still. So like
yeah, well.
Yeah. So things are progressing anyway, which
Yeah, I feel bad for the tiny breweries that are physically tiny just because, we have one brewery that even when things opened up, they're like, we're still doing just to go because their inside is just so small. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, like I'm so impressed with some of the things that the breweries are pulling out, like, because I follow so many in the Chicago area, and so many of them have been able to build like patios in this time frame. The fact that they've managed to build a patio and build an entirely new operating system is mind-blowing. Like the things people have had to like come up with in such a short amount of time is just amazing. Like I have no idea how I would handle it if I were in their position, you know?
Well, and with the canning, a lot more of them are canning. And like I saw one brewery, they're like, we ran out of cans and these 2 other breweries helped us and brought us cans. And it's always nice to see them help each other, and it benefits us because I got to get beer from all 3 of those breweries. So, which are 3 of my favorite breweries in the area. So, but it is interesting. And then the ones that don't can, though, you forget you can still bring growlers. I feel like people forget that nowadays. Like there's one brewery I always bring my growlers to because they don't can so much, but a lot of people don't even, they just want to get the new can for the can art. What Jay was saying before, that's a huge marketing thing nowadays.
If there's one really positive takeaway from this entire period, it's that breweries here have started opening to growlers in general, because that's something I didn't really see much of before. Like there just wasn't much of a culture for that. But now throughout all of this, people have suddenly like come around to this idea. So breweries that I've never been able to take tap beer from have this option now, and it's so cool to see that it's actually progressing this way. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, and that's better for the environment too. I think, and Mash was saying previously, I don't know if he said this on an episode or when we were texting, that the breweries make the most money off growlers too because they're not having to incur the cost of canning or labeling or anything. So it's better for the environment and it's better for the brewery. So you just have to remember to bring those growlers. That's always the hard thing. It's like remembering to bring your reusable bags to the grocery store. You got to remember to do it. Otherwise, it's not beneficial. Oh, Brad's on now. Brad, you just missed. We were talking about marshmallows and brewing and whatnot, and I mentioned you. So you'll have to go back and then correct me if I messed up.
Looks like we've got a new viewer. Lisa said, "Who knew my flower girl would become the Hoppy Mommy Professor? I love her advice." So appreciate you joining us. Awesome. Yeah, definitely appreciate the viewers. We'll talk a little bit more about our Hops News family, the Patreon movement, towards the end of the episode. Hobby, we've drank some good sour beers. It might be a good time to talk about some Goses.
That's perfect because I'm about to open one.
Awesome. Let's go check in with Hoppy and let her take us to beer school. And it'll give me a chance to step away real quick and rinse my glass before I pour this delicious stout.
You got to rinse that fruit out. Okay. So Gose is what we're talking about today, and I have here a Gose from Three Sons Brewery in Dania Beach. That's kind of right in between Fort Lauderdale and Miami. Everything they make is amazing. Okay, if you would like to be drunk before noon, we're going to play a drinking game. You're going to take a sip anytime I attempt to say something in German, or I attempt to say a science term. So like Leipzig, that's a city in Germany, I'm probably butchering that, or lactobacillus. Also, before I start, I should mention that pitching basically just means adding to the brew. So there are many different sour styles, from lambics to gueus, Flanders wild ales, Ode Bruin, American sours, and Berliner Weiss. Today we will focus on the gateway sour, Gose, as it has been called by Cascade Brewing's brewmaster. Cascade Brewing is actually a brewery in Portland that specializes in sours. I mentioned before we don't see that too often in the States, but they're one of them. So history of Gose. Gose, that's German, is a traditional sour ale pronounced Gose like mimosa. It is an unfiltered sour wheat ale traditionally brewed with salt and coriander. So I asked everybody if they knew what this had to do with beer school. Salt and coriander. So this ale started in Goslar, Germany. The saltiness originally came from the salt water in the Gose River. Eventually, Leipzig, Germany, became the hot spot for Gose taverns called Goschenscheiken. I suppose you could call Cascade Brewing a modern Gose tavern. Y'all should have a little buzz by now, and I'm only at fourth of the way done. Legends has it that this beer is over 1,000 years old and was enjoyed by the German Emperor Kaiser Otto III. This is legend because there is actually no written documentation that this beer was even in Goslar until 1181, let alone that a German emperor was singing its praises then. As far as Gose specifically, there is no written documentation of its existence until 1470. Still fun to think about, and it's still really old. So before World War II, there were over 80 Gose taverns in Germany, but afterwards they were gone. And we were talking about that with Katrina as well, that you don't really see them very much in Germany anymore. So there was one guy that kept the style alive until about 1966 when he passed. A couple decades later, a brewer wanted to revive this historical and unique style, so he found some old-timers and had them taste test his beer until they decided that he had actually made a traditional Gose. I do wonder, though, if they lied a little bit to try to get free beer for longer. And I hope you guys know every time I do this, that means you have to drink because I'm saying something German or science. Gose is a wheat ale, so as far as it violating the Reinheitsgebot law, which is the Bavarian law turned German law that states beer must only be water, hops, malted barley, and yeast. I read a couple different reasons as to why Gose was not violating the law. Just like with all things Reinheitsgebot, it was conflicting and different information. One reason was it was given an exception. The other was Reinheitsgebot wasn't applied to all of Germany until 1906, and where Gose was popular wasn't enforceable in those Bavarian regions. But what happened after 1906? I have no idea. They don't say that. It's all very conflicting. I mean, we even talked about that in the Reinheitsgebot law, or the Reinheitsgebot lesson. Like, it's very conflicting. So the actual beer. Well, the beer judge's overall impression of what a Gose should be is a, quote, highly carbonated, tart, and fruity wheat ale with a restrained coriander and salt character and low bitterness. Very refreshing with bright flavors and high attenuation, end quote. The tartness actually comes from lactobacillus, science term. This is actually a bacterium that is good for your gut health. Lactobacillus eats the sugar, but instead of making alcohol like yeast, it makes lactic acid. This is also found in yogurt, and it's where that sourness comes from. So if you eat that yogurt that Jamie Lee Curtis swears by, maybe drink a Gose a day instead. I have no medical training though, so maybe don't do that. I don't know. So Gose was originally brewed with wild lacto fermentation. What this means is that the lactobacillus wasn't pitched, it happened by itself. It happened naturally. This can cause Gose to be a very unpredictable beer. To happen naturally, part of the wort is actually left unboiled, so that's when you're making the beer. So the wild bacterium in the grain husks runs its course because they're not killed off in the boil. So today that lactobacillus is more so pitched and just added rather than letting it happen naturally. This makes it easier to control the flavor, or better yet, to control the off flavors. It can get a lot more technical nowadays, which I'm not going to get into, nor do I have the credentials to do so, but you can get the basic idea. This is different from actual wild fermentation pitching yeast. That is the process of yeast eating sugar and making alcohol. Gose was wildly fermented back in the day, but is generally not done today for the same reason that lacto-fermenting is not done anymore as well, control. And that's a whole other beer school for a whole other day. So now the most famous ingredient of all beer is hops. They are only present in Gose for their antimicrobial support. So think IPAs, they help preserve the beer. But that's why Goses are so low in their IBUs, which is just their bitterness. Okay, I don't know if anyone is still brewing Gose with salt water from the Gose River, but if not, salt and coriander are added at the end of brewing. The salt should be very subtle, and the fruity flavor actually comes from the coriander. So it's not a fruit beer like we were talking about. And it's usually like a citrusy kind of fruit flavor. I say usually because in recent years, which Katrina even mentioned this as well, in the States, some of these breweries have run wild with this style, no pun intended, get it, wild ales, with all sorts of sour styles and every other style of beer as well, which I'm not complaining because we get some amazing creative things. So the aroma should be similar to a wit beer, and the ABV tends to be very low, like 4 or 6%. Now, because it's such a low ABV, and actually, Brew Witch, I'd like you to confirm or deny this, there are parts of Germany that will actually serve this beer with liquor or even mix it with white wine or champagne. I don't know if that's a real thing, but that's what I read. So how do you serve it? It is not uncommon. This one was very interesting. I don't know if this is a comment or a thing they do today or just in the past, but sometimes when they bottle it, it's still fermenting a little, and they pour it into like, you have the original bottle with you, but some of these older bottles was like a ball with like a stem on top, and they pour it into there, and then as it keeps fermenting, it creates like a cork at the top, and then the actual lid they put on it is like a reusable lid from like a growler, because it creates like a, I guess, a crusty kind of thing, and it creates its own cork. I thought that was very interesting. Now, the recommended proper glassware is a Stang glass, also used for Kolsch's, alt beer, and other kind of beers. So it's basically just a cylinder. It holds just over 6 ounces of beer and can be referred to as the champagne flute of the world. So it might also be good for Miller beer. So in conclusion, now that you guys are experts on this unpredictable and interesting style of beer, I'm going to leave you with a summer fun fact. Gose is said in German to be the perfect summer beer and is called the Schussscharm, which means sun umbrella. So here is to summer and our gut health. If you're not drunk now, you weren't paying attention. Prost. And now I'm going to pour it into my glass. I haven't even tried this beer because I've been just picking it up to make everybody else drink. There we go. So that is how it should be poured.
Awesome.
And that's beer school for today.
Awesome. And how is it, Hoppy? Is that a good one?
It's good.
So your palate.
Yeah, I'm not a big sour fan. Well, I had water in between, so my palate should be somewhat refreshed. But no, it's very light. But this brewery is an amazing brewery, Three Sons Brewery. If anyone's ever had it, then they know. I love all their hazy IPAs. But yeah, this is a Mosaic dry hopped Gose.
Ooh.
It's very good, very refreshing.
Nice. And I had to go completely the opposite direction during the little break for me. I had to go get the Chocolate Lava Stout by Untitled Art. And I will tell you, I've probably had some of their stuff before, but I didn't realize it. You see the artwork? Noel Miller.
Oh, yeah.
This is pretty cool concept if I understand it correctly, but I'm going to look into it. So, yeah. This is what I needed this morning.
Is it just Untitled Art, or is it a collab? Because they tend to do a ton of collabs.
I don't see anything about a collaboration, so I'm sure it's just Untitled Art up there in Wisconsin with our very own Lucky somewhere. So, great beer. No doubt, very dark. You're not seeing through that glass. So, good beer. Came highly recommended by the gentleman at the beer store a couple of days ago. I've properly let this one set out, and it's about room temperature right now, so the flavors are exploding. The aroma, a chocolate lava cake is exactly what it's hitting. So if you're a fan of chocolate and lava cakes and beer, see if you can find this one, because you won't be disappointed in this beer for sure. Hoppy, your beer schools, we've gone through this time and time again. So I know you feel like you end up rambling, but I don't.
I do.
I've not known any more about Gose's, Prohibition, anything that you've ever talked about more than after listening to you, because it is always an extremely interesting subject that you bring out facts that I don't even know. I knew that where Gose got its start was from the water that was used and that sort of thing, being very salty. But you always bring out interesting facts that I had no clue about. So it's always interesting for me. And I wish we had a way to rip out the beer school segments of every video and just offer those up to people, because you put out some great content with it. And I know you don't come up with this stuff off of your hip. I know you put in some hours to come up with it. So appreciate your effort there. It's always great.
Well,
yeah, I knew none of that.
Well, I've started doing the beer school recaps so that I can get it all in written. Like I've started typing it so then I can just put it on the website the next day with a link to the YouTube video. Because, hopefully that creates content that stays there. But, I mean, I didn't really know anything about it before. I think we had an episode like a month ago and Gose came up and somebody asked how you say it. I'm like, I don't know. I think it's Gose. I think anything goes. And then my dad, after it was over, he's like, no, you only say it Gose. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know how to say it a month ago.
Nice. Well, you definitely put a great topic on it, and I do remember you put out a recap for those, and I think I showed you in the last one how you can forward the video. So when you copy the link, so if you go and check out Hoppy's beer school recaps, you should be able to watch just her segment. So when you click on the link, it'll be a YouTube link there. You won't have to scroll through an hour and 40 minutes of video now at this point to get to, or hour and 20 minutes of video at this point to get to her school. It should pull up in any of those that she's posted. So check them out. Always a great topic, always very informative. Jeff says, I've got an altogether New England IPA going from Aeronaut in Somerville, Massachusetts.
Those have all been great.
Yeah, that's I bet you that's a tremendous beer. Brian asked Lori, what's your first favorite hop? Because Lori said Mosaic, my second favorite hop. Yeah, what is your first favorite hop if Mosaic is your second? I don't know that I've actually listed Citra. Oh, Hoppy's going to nail it. She says Citra. I don't know if I've actually sat down and listed hops in order. Do you have a favorite hop, Hoppy? Uh-oh.
So I cut out for a second.
Do you have a favorite hop?
My favorite hop's Citra. Like King Sue, all those Citra hops, it's just... I don't like fruited beer, but I love citrus hops. Or Citra hops.
Interesting. Brew, do you have a favorite hop?
I mean, I do think Citra hops are some of the most, the Citra is so versatile, and I think it's so good, if you showcase it well. But, if I want something a bit more unique, the Sriracha Ace hop is a beer. It's a hop that when it shows up in beers, I love it, and I can't really place exactly what it tastes like. I feel like it's lemony and spicy almost, but it's so interesting, and every beer I've had with it has been such a delight. So I guess that's up there. But I have no list either, so...
I don't know if I've ever even heard of that one. I'm going to be on the lookout. What was it called again?
Sriracha Ace. It's one... I don't know if maybe it was just trendy for a hot second, and that's why I've seen it, but over the past, year and a half, I've seen it show up in a couple of random beers, and it's been so fun. It's just interesting. Yeah. I think it's from Japan, to be honest. I don't know much about it, but that's going to be my guess. Yeah.
We got Bryn just said Galaxy, because we got a couple brewers in here. Bryn, Brad. So, yeah, she just said Galaxy. That one you see a lot, Galaxy. But I don't know if I could pinpoint that, because I feel like Citra might just be my favorite because it's the easier one to pinpoint.
Yeah.
My palate's not that refined.
Yeah, that would be, so I don't know how we would do it, but that would be kind of interesting to get some hops out to the host and kind of, hey, what is it that what do you experience? Kind of get a beer to match the hop and kind of do that. Might be a series for hop or for beer school. Hoppy is to do a series on hops and some of the, I guess, the more not necessarily the sexy ones because they can be kind of difficult to get a hold of, but maybe some of the common hops that are found in beers. That would be a good one because that is one thing that, I think I know a taste when I taste it, but I'll be honest with you, I just don't put the effort in to say, oh man, that beer's got Citra in it or that beer's got Galaxy in it. I'm probably just not that familiar with it, but man, I would be very interested in a beer school series that would help me out with that because it is, as you guys said, there are so many hop strains out there right now and everybody's trying to come up with the next greatest demanded one. And it is, man, that is probably more brutal than the shelf space for beers right now is hops growers trying to find that strain that everybody wants.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe even beers that specifically showcase certain hops well. Mm-hmm. Like, I think I really like Cashmere because the ones I see that in tend to be a bit smoother, I guess. But again, if anybody's watching that knows hops better, chime in. Because they also don't always list the hops on the beer that you're drinking. So you don't always necessarily know, what exact hops you're enjoying.
Corey just said it. This is what we're going to do. Corey says, get hop samples, make hop tea to get the flavors. So we need to reach out to some hops farms or distributors and see if we can't get some samples from them. Obviously, we'll give them a plug. Maybe create some hop teas. These would be great for an international episode of Hops News where it's early morning for us. We have an excuse to drink hops tea instead of beer. So that'll be we'll definitely put somebody on that. Obviously, the hops farmers would probably be more than accommodating to send us enough that we need to make some tea out of, and we can obviously make sure that we get some to Brew Witch for those episodes. So that will be a great one. Great idea, Corey. And Corey is a Hops News family member, so appreciate that tidbit of information. That would have never come across to me if we didn't have cool people like that in our group to keep us in check and give us those good ideas. But that's an interesting idea. I think that's something we might follow up with and see if we can't get that going. Maybe not next international episode, but at least a couple of down the road, because that might help me accomplish what it is that I need to accomplish, not just where we are at as a group, but personally, just so I know, hey, this is the hop that I'm identifying. Because I think that if I could identify the hop, especially in IPAs, I know what to look for next time, right? A lot of these guys are listing their hops, and most of these beers have several of them in there, but I don't always know which one I'm enjoying and which one is not the so favorite. So great idea, Corey. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking Thursday Beer School might just be the different sours, because in researching Gose, it kept comparing Gose to Berliner Weiss and to the I don't even know how to say the other one with the G-U-E-U-Z-E.
Oh, the Gose. Like, I pronounce it Gose as well, but I have no idea if that's right.
Yeah, well, the phonetical one I got wasn't helpful either, but it looked like it was Goo-Ooze.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, the more sours I try, the more interested I am. But anytime someone asks me about it at the store, it's always a bit of a struggle for me to, like, pull out a solid explanation of what we're looking at.
Right.
Yeah, like, because it's just one of those things that I don't know enough about, and it's just, like, a tad bit more complicated for me to, like, explain. So, like, I would love if you did a beer school that just talked about the variety and how to approach it. I would love that.
I think Katrina nailed it, though. In the States, we're just not necessarily adulterating, because that sounds like it's bad, but just experimenting with all these different styles and changing what their core meaning was. But yeah, I mean, because I got a bunch of research already and just researching Gose. But I got to say, my favorite Berliner Weiss I've ever had was actually Untitled Art. It was a collaboration with Jay Wakefield. And it's not a style I would have normally got, but I love Jay Wakefield so much. And it was at a bottle shop, GB Bottle Shop in Orlando, so I grabbed it. And I was like, maybe I don't hate sours. Because that's the thing, too. It's like sours are so unique. Like the first sour I ever had was a Duchess Bourgogne, which is like a vinegar sour.
Oh, it's like a Flanders Red or something, isn't it? Something quite
I'm not
particular.
sure. It was so long ago, but I mean, I am like,
I
this
think I
tastes
know
like
which one you're
salad
talking
dressing.
about. Yeah.
So I just assumed I didn't like any sours.
I think labeling them as sours was a really bad first step for me, because in my head I was just like, oh, I don't like sour taste. And then I just kind of like steered clear of the entire genre for a very long time, which was a big mistake because I clearly quite like them. But I think just the fact that they're called sours were just like a little bit too out of my comfort zone, you know?
But I think it's like with so many styles, like the other day, you know, in the after hours, we were talking with Danny from Beers Giving, and she does Island to Island Brewing. And I mentioned, you know, I don't like lagers. And she's like, you mean you don't like American lagers? And she was right, because I love a good Oktoberfest. I love a good Dunkel. I just don't like, you know, I don't like PBR, or is PBR even a lager? I don't like your basic American watered down lagers is what I was saying. But there's so many lagers I try and I'm like, oh, this is really good. I don't like lagers, but this is good. Well, you can only say that so many times before you have to quit saying you don't like lagers.
That's blasphemy. How can anybody say they don't like a good lager? Especially down there in Florida where it's probably going to be a 98 degrees today or so. What are you drinking? What are you drinking?
I will drink a barrel-aged stout on the beach in 90-degree weather. It does not bother me at all.
That gives me a heat injury just thinking about it. I'm going to fall over from dehydration. Yeah. Or have a hell of a hangover come Monday. Yeah, I mean, that's lagers and pilsners on a hot summer day. I will tell you, that's where it's at for me. But Hoppy's definitely one of those that's a stout beer fan. I think she's going to have some great episodes coming up this fall and winter for us, because that for me is when we really pour them out. This one in here is just because I needed something that wasn't so sour this morning to close it out. But that's some great beers. The stouts are great. Let's talk about some of the upcoming episodes we have coming up. The 21st, which is, I guess, Tuesday, right? Is that Tuesday already? Oh,
yeah.
Man.
Yes.
July 21st is already upon us. Tuesday's episode is going to have Bryant from Full Pour Media, another media company there in Colorado. I think they're more into the marketing aspect than providing content. I think they do provide some content, but definitely looking forward to talking to Bryant. July 23rd, the Thursday night episode. This is the one I've been watching for a while. Looking forward to this one for a while. Kenny Gould, the founder of Hop Culture Magazine, is going to be on that episode. And Kenny, if you by chance come across this one, I'll apologize for keeping you the full hour, because it'll probably be another one that goes a little long-winded. Those guys have a tremendous reach in the beer culture scene and have done it fairly quickly. So looking forward to that one. That'll be a great episode. The 28th, we have 3 Block Brewing from Ontario. That'll be another interesting one. And then the 30th of July, Hoppy Mommy is going to be fangirled out on this one. The founder of Tripping Animals is going to be on that episode. August the 6th, Wellbeing Brewing. August the 11th, porchdrinking.com. And MASH is going to fanboy out on this one. August the 13th, Shipyard Brewing. I'm sure we're going to talk Oktoberfest beers and pumpkin beers at that point, because MASH will be all basiced out with his Uggs and scarves and pumpkin beers and pumpkin lattes, I'm sure. August 30th, White Dog Brewing. August 27th, another big one coming up, Pontoon Brewing. That'll be interesting. We just found out this week that we're going to have some people down there at a big collaboration release that they're going to do. So I believe Lucky's bought a flight and going to join Pontoon Brewing to do some more live on location segments for us. So looking forward to that. And Lucky, man, you are crushing that part that you did for Bottle Share and Mobcraft Brewing was amazing. And I will tell you that that is something that I think we could find our way in, is providing this sort of reach and live content for breweries. Looking forward to seeing what you do with that. September 10th, Raleigh Brewing Company, kind of just down the road from here. So looking forward to talking to those guys and seeing what they're doing. Hoppy, what else did I miss? Did I miss anything coming up that I don't know about or didn't remember?
I don't think so. All I know, my big focus is tripping animals, but MASH handles all that, and I know we're booked until like September. So, and yeah, I think August is too early for pumpkin beers, but I guess we're going full on basic in August. So.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's when breweries and coffee shops and all of these guys that follow trends like that start releasing their fall trendy stuff. You'll have the pumpkin lattes hitting Starbucks and every major coffee outlet, and you'll have all these beer guys that are releasing pumpkin beers that, I'll just be honest with you, I don't see it, but some of them do a pretty good job. I love some Oktoberfest. I'm just not a fan of a lot of the pumpkin forward beers.
Yeah, I just hold on to all of them until the first day of fall, and then I drink them. But yeah, Disney, they canceled their Halloween party for this year, but they started doing their Halloween party in August. I was like, we're not going to Magic Kingdom until October, because that's just wrong to see pumpkins in August. It's just wrong.
Yeah, I don't get it, but I think it's just it's kind of that capitalistic market. They're all trying to get their foothold and kind of be the first ones, so people rush to grab it up. But Hoppy, I'm looking forward to getting back into the Disney thing. Do we have any word on that? What's the status?
Open. I haven't been because it's full on mask and it's 95 degrees out, and I gotta tell you, I can barely breathe with the mask on when I'm doing beer runs. I'm not about to go to the parks. But they are open, but you can't necessarily walk and drink, which is what I always do at the parks, is walk and drink. So you're only allowed to take the mask off when you're seated. So I don't know what's going on. I'm definitely not canceling my pass, even though my husband wants me to. But I'm hoping when the weather cools down, I'm more ready to put the mask on and go out there. But they are open. I've seen people there. I don't think I could handle it.
Yeah, that's great. And if people hasn't followed us for very long, I'm sure we have some new viewers, new listeners, new people that follow Hops News. Hoppy is not just a self-proclaimed, but she is literally the Disney beer expert. And that is going to be a big part of our new website that's being developed, because I feel like there's a niche in what we can specialize. If I'm going to Disney, I will tell you, the first thing I'm searching is where can I find beer in Disney. So I think we've got a mark that we can leave in that segment of Disney and beer. And Hoppy spends enough time in Disney, and you can read it from her previous articles, knows Disney beer in and out. But what I'm really looking forward to, Hoppy, and I'm just going to put the pressure on you now, is some live on location type segments where you can cover what's going on in that space and kind of bring that to our viewers, because I have a feeling, just from reading what you release, I think that Disney doesn't have a very good face for the beer consumer, right?
Right.
Me as the average beer consumer would figure, if I'm going to Disney, it's going to be a dry damn vacation. But just from what you've posted, you can get a lot of great beer when you go to Disney. And I think that once, the platform that we have established, I think we can definitely get that word out there, and I'm looking forward to that sort of content that you can bring us.
Absolutely. And local beer, too. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of the local breweries will make beer specific to certain festivals, like Epcot has an arts festival. Well, MIA Brewing, which is 3.5 hours south of here, does a jazz IPA every year for that 6-week festival. Playa Linda does specialized beers for all of Epcot's beer festivals, Food and Wine. And Castle Church. I think Bryn might have signed off, but she works at Castle Church, and they had a porter there at Christmas time. And Castle Church is 15 minutes from Disney, so you can get a lot of good local beer there. You just have to pass that Bud Light cart. That's all you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, and then one of those things are, I think a bigger thing might be is just making people realize what's there, right? Mm-hmm. Because I'll be honest with you, when I go to stuff like horse shows and stuff like that with my daughter and my wife, I'm just probably not going the first few days just because I don't think there's anything there that I'm going to enjoy. So I'll usually go ride my bike, do a couple bike rides or something like that. But I think that there's probably a lot of dads and maybe even some moms that are in my situation where it's like, I'm just not going to go the first couple of days, go have fun, let the kids do what they're going to do. But I think if you can make people aware of what's really out there and available as far as beer, I mean, that would be a great draw, especially if there's, I think a key is, and Hoppy said it, is there's great breweries that are brewing beer just there. Just that's going to be there at that location. So I think being able to highlight that for some of those breweries would be pretty big, and I'm definitely looking forward to that aspect getting back opened up. Brew Witch, I noticed you poured something new over there. Let's go check in with Brew Witch in Germany. Brew Witch, what's that new pour you just opened up there?
I did. I've been working my way through my sour collection, and I'm on my third one. So I just finished my original Leipziger Gose, which I got in honor of our beer school today, which was lovely. It's another style that I didn't realize I was very into until recently because it's so refreshing.
And that's like an original one.
Yeah, like I'm actually torn because like the majority of what I wanted to write for the Hops News website was basically like beer travel information, which I feel is quite insensitive to do right now when no one can travel. So, but I would love to write an article about Leipzig because you could spend all day wandering around and traveling Goses, and like there's loads of beautiful gardens you can sit in, and you can try so many different types. And for whatever reason, a Gose is really good if you've been drinking all day or something like that, because I think it's quite light and it kind of cuts any like full feeling you might have from drinking. So like someday I will write an article about the things you can do in Leipzig and where you should go drink because it's lovely and that was a great beer. But now I've moved on to a Berliner Weiss. This is another Berlin brewery, Schneeowl, which just means snow owl. It's such a cool brewery. I'm so into them. So, and I'm actually working on an article right now with the brewer there because she is basically a one-woman show and she does everything. And she's purely interested in just reviving a Berliner Weiss because she talked a lot about what Katarina also said, that like these styles have kind of come and gone in such a strange way. And like a lot of what people think a Berliner Weiss is in Germany is like a syrupy, sweet drink.
Yeah.
So
I read that it's not uncommon for them to literally pour syrup into it.
No, like, so whenever you do make it to Germany and you're in like a shop or something, just look and you'll see something called Berliner Kindle. And like these are essentially, I don't think they actually can call themselves Berliner Weisses anymore, but like what it is it's just a sour beer, but it has like maybe like 40% syrup in it. So they have like, they might have like a berry one and it's very sweet. And they also have like an elderflower one, I think, but it's just basically syrup. So a lot of people here, when they look at what a Berliner Weiss is, they think it's just this like syrupy, spritzy kind of drink. So this brewery, Schneeowl, is very, very dedicated to trying to rebrand again what a Berliner Weiss is. And when I was talking to her the other day, she's so cool because she's so passionate about it. And I don't know many people who are that passionate about something so particular. But all of her Berliner Weisses are so interesting. And she's trying so hard to just kind of show people what they can be. This one in particular is a Berliner Weiss that has jasmine flowers in it. So it has quite a light, like, florally taste. It's really lovely. I'm very pleased with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. We are, and we'll go back to all of us here. We've seen the first rendition of the frame of our website, and I will tell you guys, I am completely mind-blown at what this will become. Jeff made a comment there, and we need to get a Hoppy sponsored by Disney. Free annual passes. Jeff.
My husband would love that.
So a big part of what we hope to accomplish through the website is just to be able to position ourselves to be able to cover stuff like this. By having content providers like Hoppy and Brew Witch providing content like that and articles will definitely help us get to a point where we can start to ask for some media passes for events and organizations like that. Brew Witch, I love your idea. I will tell you that I think that just talking about some of the traditional beers and their starts and some of the access that you might get through those type of breweries, that is a pretty special place to be in as somebody that's covering the beer scene, because 90% of the people that are craft beer snobs in America will still look to Germany as kind of being that standard setter. So I know it sounds boring for you, but I will tell you that kind of covering the traditional beer scene in Germany and maybe going to find those breweries that started it all, you could make a hell of a name for yourself just covering that. I know that's been done time and time again, but it's always, I think, being able to tie it back to what's happening today and kind of the trends and that sort of thing would be big. And obviously the content will be consumed, because that is something that not many people have that sort of access to and can get it. So people that are watching today and able to get the firsthand over there in Germany talking to brewers and kind of what they're struggling with. I mean, I would have never guessed that German brewers are struggling with the stigma that putting beer in cans is a bad thing. Because in America, if you're not putting beer in cans, you're not selling much beer, because that's just the way things are. So right. Definitely interesting take, and I definitely look forward to some of that content creation from you guys. And we are moving forward to putting together a website worthy of your content. I know it's been a trying time, but we'll get there. And that's the type of content that will be great on that website. I think it's about that time, ladies. It's been a great episode. Definitely appreciate the two of you. And I know Mash and Lucky are not here with us today, but I definitely appreciate those guys as well. Mash is out hiking some spectacular view. Lucky spending some time with family members today. Let's go check in with Hoppy. Hoppy, what should we know? How can people follow you? What's your parting shots for our latest international edition of Hoppy Hour?
My parting shots are, you can find me on Untapped and the Instagram, The Hoppy Mommy, no spaces. And I think the international ones might be my favorite, so I can't wait for the next one. I mean, I can't do this every Sunday morning. I wish I could, but it's definitely a fun, because he's right. As even the biggest craft beer snob still has a high respect for German beer. It's like it's the original gangster kind of thing. And to hear an American who's living in Germany working at a bottle shop, like, that's a very unique perspective. Yeah. So I definitely look forward to getting more articles out. Yeah.
Yeah, I will tell you, and we're here at Brew Witch now, I will tell you that there's not many. I mean, our organization is pretty new. We've been around for a few years, kind of had some lackluster years, but this year has been big for us with everything going on and trying to help people remain relevant. We've raised some money. Let's go talk about money raised real quick. Money raised, check out those numbers. Haven't been a lot of movement as of lately because some things have slowed down locally. Episodes, $1,369 raised through our episodes. Local support, $35,124 raised for a total of $36,493. That number is going to pick up. We've got some more local events that we're going to do and be a part of and help support. That number is going to pick up. Obviously, there's been some donations today, so that'll pick up. That is what we hold true, raising money and helping organizations get their name out there. I think I told Lucky last week after he was done with the live on location segment, the type of access that was given to him was remarkable. Yeah. I mean, had a great conversation with a great that great nonprofit organization up there. That that's what we're going to hold true to as well, is to be able to just provide that access. So if you watch us, we're going to talk a lot about the nonprofit aspect of beer and how beer is impacting that, because that's pretty important, not just for us, but for the people that are involved that aren't able to do these sort of things. It's not easy. As you've seen, we've had some technical difficulties today. So just bringing this together and being able to get breweries really from all over the world to get their voice back out there is pretty important. Shane, I've seen that donation, man. I appreciate that donation. Greatly appreciated. Pink Boot Society, last mention for our very first Hops News bomber jackets. I will tell you, these are pretty amazing. Got the hops on the back. If you pick it up, I
love the hops on the back.
If you pick it up and drink it, when you pick it up and drink it at your tailgate or whatever event, the lake, there's going to be a hops on the bottom. So pretty special piece of merchandise. Our first merch that we put out there. If you want to be a part of that random drawing, you got to get in on that. Drop a donation. We'll pick a random person from there. Brew Witch, parting shots. How do people find you to follow you?
I'm most active on Instagram. You can find me under Jill Bear, which is JILBEARR. There's other Brew Witches on Instagram, so that handle wasn't easy to get. So Jill Bear is where you can find me. I am on Untapped, but I don't really use it too often, to be honest. So that might not be the best option. My parting shots are just a big thank you to Katarina from BRLO. I was so pleased that she was able to come on and talk, because they're quite a big deal in Berlin, and I've been drinking them for ages, so it's just so cool to be able to talk to her. And I've read so many articles about her at this point, so it's just nice to have more of a one-on-one per se with her. So it was great, and thanks to you guys for having me again and waking up at 8 a.m. for a beer with me. So thanks to you, really.
Brew Witch, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I wish we could have you on more. Hey, the invitation for a Tuesday or Thursday night is always open for you. If you can get up at 4 a.m. and drink a beer with us, we would love to have you, or whatever time in the morning it would be. But we would love to have you on there. Social medias for Hops News is pretty easy. Follow us anywhere, like us, subscribe, whatever it may be, at Hops News. You should be able to find us, except on YouTube. We haven't reached that mark yet. YouTube is pretty stingy with their customized URLs, so subscribe to us, create a Google account for your dog, your goldfish, whatever it may be. Let them subscribe to you. I've subscribed to my wife and our daughter. Our son is subscribed, so that's 4 of us that have some subscriptions here on YouTube. So if you're not a part of YouTube yet, definitely we'd appreciate that. We've got to get to 100 subscriptions. That doesn't bring us to monetizing that channel even close. That just simply gives us the ability to create a custom URL for us, for our brand. So much appreciated. A lot of stuff going on behind the scenes for Hops News. A lot of different directions we can run in. We're trying to bring it all together and create what it is that it's going to be. We hope that there's a opportunity for us to be a nonprofit of our own in the future, and to be able to work with breweries a little bit more and closely to help promote the events that they're doing. So a lot of stuff going on in the backgrounds. Wouldn't be possible without our Hops News family members. You guys don't realize just the little bit of money that it takes to get us to be able to say, this is what we're going to do next month. This month we've taken everything that the Hops News family is committed to us and putting it straight to growing the page. Obviously, my wife definitely appreciates me not having to spend the money on the website on my own. Hops News family is definitely not paid for that whole website yet, but just the commitment, knowing it's there, and if we keep doing what we're doing, it will definitely take care of itself. Without you guys and ladies that are a part of that Patreon page, we wouldn't be where we are today. Staring a new website in the works, getting ready to finish that up here very soon. So appreciate you guys. If you're interested in joining, there's a Patreon page that you join through. Gives you the list of the things that are available. There's not too many of the Sip of Sunshine levels left, so if you're interested, get on that, because it'll definitely help us out. We take every dime of that and put it towards the promotion of the page. Unfortunately, with companies like Facebook and Instagram, you don't grow without spending money with those guys. And that's just the name of the game. So, been a great episode, ladies. I appreciate your time. It's been spectacular, and I'm looking forward to the next one. So, from everybody that's viewed and viewing, cheers. Appreciate your time. And we look forward to the next one. Have a great Sunday morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're at.
Barely noon.
Awesome episode, ladies. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, Annie, it's awesome having you on. I wish we could do it. I mean, it is hard on Sunday morning. My